Hey there, this is London Crown's Daly Black. We're here with Trevor Baker of Roof Experts LLC. How's it going, Trevor?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Good, man. Tell us a little bit about your company, who you are, where you're from, and what you do with Roof Experts.
Okay, my name's Trevor Baker. I'm the owner of Roof Experts. I'm a third generation contractor. My grandpa was a home builder. My dad was a GC, and I started selling some roofs for him, and then I just really wanted to take it to the next step or next level in the roofing industry. And I did a lot of insurance claims. He didn't really do much insurance claims. He's kind of more retail, And so that's whenever I started Roof Experts and wanted to start moving forward with it.
And how old were you when you started Roof Experts?
I was 22.
What made you, as a 22-year-old, want to go out and start your own company versus go and be a salesman for a while for another company?
I just really had a passion for it. I mean, I really enjoy it. I enjoy the customer interaction, their
For
satisfaction.
roofing or to be an entrepreneur?
For roofing and being an entrepreneur. I enjoy working with my guys, or hiring people and seeing them succeed. Just that, seeing my guys succeed, and then seeing my customers happy when we're done is like what keeps me going.
As a 22-year-old, what made you want to take on that kind of responsibility, Trevor, to be a business owner? What was the catalyst for that, and what made you want to take on that responsibility? Because a lot of 22-year-olds just want to go capitalize on their ability to sell, capitalize on their ability to close deals in this industry, make their money, and then enjoy the fact that they don't have any responsibility. They don't have the overhead and things to worry about, secretaries and employees.
Yeah.
What made you want to do that, Trevor?
Honestly, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I mean, I just knew that I enjoyed roofing, and I knew that I could be very good at it, and I knew that I was good at talking to people. And ever since I was like 5 years old, all I would do was just go around and talk people's ear off, my neighbors, or I was always real social with people my parents' age, being young. So I've always been good with people that have been older than me, and homeowners, and they just tend to really like me.
And how old are you today, Trevor?
25.
So at 2 years into it, how many employees do you have, and what is Roof Experts doing today?
I have 5 sales reps right now, 2 W-2 employees. I had more sales guys last year, but I'm really trying to step back a little bit, and I'm investing my time into the guys that have been doing really well with me, and I'm trying to get them more set up as managers, and we're going to go out there and we're going to try to hire 10, 20 more guys and really get known in this industry and this marketplace, and try to do a lot of roofs. I'm really ready to grow this thing.
As the owner, though, you've gone through some insurance claims yourself, not just helping your guys do it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, at first, the first 2 years, it was just me and my partner at the time, and dude, I was selling, building, collecting, invoicing. I didn't have any. I was doing all of it. I was filming content. I mean, I don't know how I did it. I worked in 2019, we had a storm hit Frisco, McKinney, and I worked from like March 23rd or so to July 4th weekend without a day off. I worked 7 days a week. Every Sunday, I was up at 6 a.m. I was coming home at 10 p.m. Dirty. I was up tarping roofs by myself. Whatever I had to do to get it done, I knew that this was going to be my year of growth, and I had really good momentum to go in, so I took advantage of it.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've had to do to get it done. We always say necessity is the mother of skill, and there was a time where you had was that your first big commercial project that we did a couple years ago? Was it last year, right?
Last year, yeah. That was I call that one the game changer. That one job was like my total revenue of my first year in business.
Tell me a little bit about that claim.
So one of the employees there called my partner and I to come out there and take a look at the roof. And we went and met with one of the representatives from there and took a look around and saw the roof that had folded over in the wind from the October 19th storm when the tornado came through Dallas. And this thing was being held down by cinder blocks. And they kind of showed us that they had previous repairs and stuff. And we recommended that this roof was no longer repairable and that we needed to replace the entire thing. So that's when they called their insurance company. And whenever they called their insurance company, they informed me when they were coming out. And it was probably 2 weeks later, we went out there and we met up with the insurance company and got on the roof. And first red flag for me that right then and there was they were measuring off the section that folded over in the wind. I knew right then and there that they're going to write this thing up for repair.
As they had done before. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So where it folded over was actually
where the previous repair.
Yeah, there had been a claim a year or two ago, and
right.
the carrier had sent a preferred contractor out there to repair it. So obviously the repair's not holding up; it keeps failing.
What else happened during that adjustment?
So I just kind of stepped back and let him and the representative from the company talk, and they walked off, and there's just the ladder now guy up there. So we hung out for a second, and then the representative from the company came back up and said, "Hey, man, I just spoke with the carrier, the adjuster, and he said, we're going to write this thing up to repair it, but have your contractor counter it with a replacement cost estimate." So that was kind of my.
They said their adjustment was going to be for repair.
Yeah.
But if you would just be so kind as to submit a replacement estimate, they would approve it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of my second. That was my second red flag.
That makes sense.
I was like, why wouldn't you just pay replace the whole thing at first? Why make them go through all these extra steps?
So what did you do next after that?
We went and put an estimate together and went and had a meeting with the client.
You did what the insurance company asked you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And gave them the estimate, and they sent in a letter with their estimate, or with our estimate to the carrier.
They mean the client, the insured?
Yeah. So I gave them.
That's something the insurance company did not expect you to do, did they?
Yeah. So they sent in kind of like a demand letter with our estimate, like, hey.
Was it one of the please release all undisputed funds?
Yeah, exactly what it was. Yeah.
And that came from your insured.
Because they knew then that something was wrong too, because it didn't really make sense to us that this section of the roof keeps failing. Their insurance preferred contractor, the carrier preferred contractor, keeps repairing it. It's not working.
So you say you're sitting down with the CEO or the CFO? The CFO of the company, okay.
Yeah, and now that they have an adjuster telling them, well, hey, send us an estimate for complete replacement, and we maybe won't replace it,
So they created the impression that if they just did this contingency, submit an estimate for replacement.
Kind of misled them.
Right.
Pretty much.
But you could sense that they felt that, or you presented that to them, and that's how the conversation went?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I had mentioned to them too, like, we'll send this in, and chances are they might come back and say that they're going to send an engineer out here.
You don't know what they hadn't made a decision yet.
Yeah.
You were just doing what they asked. So.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that you submitted that not on your own. You did submit it on your own, probably, of course, but you actually sat down with the CFO of the company, addressed the issue, and then had her or him submit a request for all undisputed funds with your estimate attached.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what did the carrier do after that?
It was probably about 2 weeks later. They sent an email back to the client, said that, hey, we're going to send an engineer out to take a look at the roof, see if this thing's repairable or if it's not.
And they'd already had an adjuster and ladder now representative out there. So
and even the adjuster was up there and looked at it and said, man, this thing's not repairable.
Right.
So it was kind of.
Do you think the adjuster knew that he was sent out there? It was sort of already in his mind that he was going to be there to write a repair, but he got there and in his.
I think it was
he
kind
realized
of.
it needed to be replaced.
I think it was kind of an authority thing for him.
Right.
Like he didn't have the authority to write it for a full roof replacement. He didn't want to get in trouble or something like that.
He wasn't charged with the authority to make a decision for the full replacement should it be necessary.
But he knew it needed to be replaced. He even said it.
So basically he's saying, send me a request for what I think needs to be done, and then I'll go find the authority if it's possible to get that. So you did that.
Exactly.
And then you had the insured submit that with a request to direct them to do what they needed to do.
I told them too. I said, make sure that any communication you have with them, if they're pulling you to the side and saying, we're going to write it for repair, but we're going to send a replacement estimate, we'll replace it. I said, from now on out, just have them put that in writing. So just tell them that all communication be put in writing.
I remember when that came up that was really smart of you to do because that's exactly what if that communication had only been in writing.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have had a much better argument from the beginning.
Sure.
So then they sent an engineer out, and what did the engineer do?
I never even knew when the engineer went out there, but the engineer went out there and put a report together and said that the section of the roof that has folded over was improperly installed. And while he was there, he also looked at the rest of
the repair.
Yeah. The repair that
Right.
the insurance
The folded over
the
portion
carrier's
that the-
preferred contractor that did the repair was improper. That's why.
Do you think they knew it was the carrier's preferred contractor before they made that?
I don't think they
didn't
had
look it
any
up, did
idea.
they?
I had no idea. So it kind of just like,
Yeah.
it was pretty. The whole process of the claim was very interesting.
So the decision, the engineer created a report, and then the carrier made a decision or a coverage position letter based off of that. And what did they tell your client?
The engineer he looked at multiple sections of the roof, and then the carrier came back and was like, well, hey, this section of the roof is this storm date, and this section of the roof over here is a different storm date. And it was like they were trying to open up another claim now. And that's when the client really got stressed out, because, they've been through hell with this roof over and over. And now their insurance company's trying to open up multiple claims on them.
Yeah, I remember that. They made
understand
two
why.
findings. It was a faulty repair on one, but of course they didn't know the repair had been done by the previous preferred contractor. Notwithstanding that, I think it was they tried to bifurcate the claim. They tried to say that there's a faulty repair on this section, and then even though you had submitted an estimate for a full replacement on this other section that you essentially said needed to be fixed, they were trying to create a need for the policyholder to file a different date of loss on that damage.
Yeah, I think 2 separate deductibles or whatever it is that they're thinking. I have no idea. It's very interesting to me why they try to file 2 different claims.
How did you handle that next? Because it seemed like things were going well, and then they sent an engineer out there when you did what they told you to do, and now things are totally different than that.
Well, that's when the client contacted me and was stressed out and wanted to seek legal advice because they were tired of dealing with this, and they wanted a new roof. They weren't taking repair or anything else for an answer. They wanted a new roof.
And so it must have been some surprise to them, or was it when that happened?
Well, I kind of, from the very beginning, the first day I met with them, I kind of let them know that this is a possibility. The possibility of what's going on or what can happen is now reality. And so that's when she called me, and she's like, you've told us about this the entire way. Like, that's when they really put their trust all into me.
I'm going to say that built trust.
That's right then. That's when they were like,
this is a potential thing that they could do. That they seem to be playing nice at this point, but this could occur, and then it did occur.
They wanted to believe their insurance company would take care of them, but
everybody does.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I told them all this was going to happen, or warned them at the beginning that all this could happen, and then when it did, that's when they were like, Trevor's got my back. We need to listen to him, and
because you knew,
we trust,
or at least you knew it could be a possibility.
Yeah.
So I remember that, and when I looked at that case, you had set it up so well based off things we had talked about in the past, and trying to, the idea of submitting it from the insured, as well as submitting it, on your own to the carrier. That is your estimate, requesting release of undisputed funds. When I looked at the file that you had set up, and I will say that I would give you an A+ in terms of of the contractor's conduct and how you handled it with the insured.
I appreciate that.
How you basically, without crossing any lines of adjusting or advising or consulting, you stayed in your lane as a roofing contractor. You identified the fact that it needed to be replaced. I don't think anybody disagreed with you, with your client. The insured, the company representative was up there on the roof. They thought it needed to be replaced.
Yeah, for sure.
The first adjuster that went up there on the roof, they thought it needed to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
The latter now guy, he was delivering pizzas before he was up there, so he didn't know what was going on. Right.
Right.
But that's a fact, and you stuck by your guns even when the carrier tried to take that fact away or change that fact that the roof needed to be replaced, or change the reasons why the damage needed to be fixed.
For sure.
They not only pointed to the prior contractor, whether they're a preferred contractor or not. They pointed to a prior contractor and said that this storm damage, because that was the late October storm in Dallas.
I believe it was October 19th.
Yeah.
2000.
October 20th, 19th.
19.
That was a significant wind event. I don't think there was any question that was the date of the storm within that year. Right,
yeah, those were
area.
bad storms.
Right. So you've got that situation there where they're, it's clear. And at that point, who would have ever predicted that that's what would occur? That they would say there's a faulty repair and there's damage over here. We need to do another repair, but you need to file they're telling their own insured, you need to file from a different date of loss.
Yeah.
So when that happened, how do you think I mean, obviously they're not here, but how do you think they felt about it? What was their reaction when that occurred?
Honestly, they were pissed. They were very upset, and the CFO. It was to the point where the CFO of the company was starting to stress out about it, like getting very stressed. And when that day, that phone call that I got from her that day, wanting to seek legal advice, I could tell she had had enough.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to impend doom on a claim or, predict that bad things will happen. But I think you let her know it was a possibility.
Yeah.
And the fact that possibility actually came to fruition and it occurred, I think that's why she was concerned, because, your typical policyholder would just be confused by the situation. Yeah. Oh, I had no idea that the prior repair is faulty. And
everything that I mentioned that was a possibility was now unfolding.
It occurred.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's they really, at the end of the day, they just wanted a new roof.
I think it's important that you broach that issue in the beginning, to let them know that's a possibility, but not to be too cynical, right? Not to. There's certainly carriers that I never get the call, of course, when the carrier comes out and approves a claim and does what they say they're going to do. If that adjuster had been telling the truth, I don't think you ever would have given me the call. So a lot of times, I think the important part is that you heard. Everybody has wishful thinking on that first adjustment, and both the insured and the contractor, they want them to come out there and get the maximum possible result. But nobody wants to think that they're going to make, like you said, I think before, everyone wants to believe that their insurance company is going to do the right thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I, we look at this stuff every day, so we know how these insurance companies, how they act, and some of the things that they do, the customers or their insureds all the time, denials and changing storm dates up on them and saying it's not damage or underpaying them. So we're aware of it, but when you get a property owner that's been never really had to file like a claim or had really needed a new roof, and they've been paying for the last 30 years, they're going to believe, oh, well, I've been paying my insurance company for 30 years. They're going to come out and take care of me.
Well, they had filed previous claims. They had theoretically taken care of them, except for they sent
their insurance company, though, had convinced them at that time that, this is just a repair. We're still
repairs.
in good shape.
So how many prior repairs had that insurance company paid for?
I believe two prior claims which turned to 2 prior repairs.
So you've got, what I think is interesting is you have a sophisticated commercial client, 50, 60 employees, very smart people. However, it's because of their inexperience. It's not because they're not intelligent. It's their inexperience that you have.
Yeah.
And that that's a possibility. You advise them of that. And when it becomes true, all of a sudden it becomes real, and your trust level went up with the client as well. And you became the only person that had ever told them the truth of what the carrier was going to do, because the carrier lied to them.
I think the best thing that I did from the very beginning was I just shot them straight on the worst case scenario and I've prepped them for denial, and even talk to them about engineer, and that they have to, the squeaky bolt always gets greased, so they stand your ground, because it's time that you need a new roof. They owe you. And
then you establish the documentation that an attorney, a public adjuster, somebody looking over your shoulder, even the opposing counsel could look over your shoulder and see this documentation was provided. They did exactly as they could do, and request release of all undisputed funds, request an explanation for their coverage decision in writing, to the extent they weren't going to pay for your full replacement estimate. And I think they did provide that, but the explanation was just so unreasonable.
Yeah,
it's just so out of character with what the original adjustment was, that's. I mean, I'm presuming that's what made her call and ask you to find an attorney to help them with this.
I mean, she asked me what should we do now, and my recommendation was, I would seek legal advice. Seek counsel.
Yeah. So I remember discussing that with her as you broke it down, and she told me the exact same facts. And it was very interesting how the chronology of how that went, because everything seemed like it was going to go well, and then it took a left turn. But she did say that. She said, I trust Trevor because he told me that this could be a possibility, and then it occurred. And so the next logical step is to seek advice on how to act next? What's the next move for the insured if the insurance company is taking that tact that they're denying what they previously said they would approve, and they're doing it for reasons that, I mean, essentially, I don't think that was ever discussed before. That they just made it up and put a rubber stamp on it from an engineer and said it was so.
I think they finally figured out that they had come to a dead end of repairs, and they were trying to strategically figure out a way to, I guess, save on cost of the replacement of this roof by 2 separate claims, and they were trying to just strategically screw them, really.
Yeah, I think they knew exactly what was going on. They previously paid for 2 repairs. They can look on the ISA report and see the records of that. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if the repairs had been paid for and no certificate of completion was submitted or and no follow-up, they never performed the repairs, they would have been harping on that. But the repairs were performed, but they were just performed by somebody that apparently didn't do the repairs right. So I just think that they're just pointing at everybody else potentially prior date of loss. By the way, I've never seen a carrier point to a prior date of loss where they actually covered the property during that date.
Oh, no, they were talking like, I think a day of loss from 2 years before that or something. And I was so confused. I mean, I was personally confused of this engineer's report.
Well, we never know what they're going to come up with, but the fact is you knew that it didn't sound right from the beginning when they say,
the whole time there's something off.
We're going to adjust a repair, but send in a replacement and we'll approve it. So I think you did, it's in terms of an example, a case or a claim where there was potential there. It seemed like a winner. It seemed like something that was going to be easy. Yeah. And it became very difficult, but you prepared for those difficulties even when things looked good and it was going to go well.
And right? I think that time frame too, from the date the claim was filed, was like December, and here we are in April or so. It's like That's April, right. I think about April, and storm season was coming. And I think once they got that engineer's report, that's how long it took. So there's this whole process for them to review my estimate, and then just for them to let them know that, hey, there's an engineer coming out. It's just like they were just delaying.
Right.
And I'm just sitting back twiddling my thumbs because I can't call the insurance company and demand payment or anything like that.
So after they retained us after they contacted us to represent them, no out-of-pocket expenses. But after they retained us at Daly Black, and we've been working on the case, tell us what happened and how that went from your perspective as a contractor.
Well, first things first, after they retained you guys, she gave me a call. I guess after speaking with you, she gave me a call and was like instantly already relieved. She was already showing signs of relief. Like I said, she was stressing very bad about this situation. And I believe that, did you guys send a demand letter? Right.
So I looked at that file, and you had set it up so well that the conclusions were obvious. The arguments for an attorney, me or any Daly Black or any attorney, would have been so fruitful on the plaintiff's side, and there really weren't any defenses.
Yeah.
The one thing I think we could have had was proof that the carrier initially came out and said they were going to pay for repair, but submit for a full replacement. I didn't have that. That was hearsay. That was something that was said to a company representative that, if we proved that person was an agent and brought that person in, established the foundation and show that that's what was said, it could have been an admission, but that's the one thing that I couldn't prove, and I had to get opposing counsel to accept as true.
Yeah.
Just believe me when I say that that's what they said, and we could have taken a deposition to establish that, but beyond that, and having to understand that that's what was said on the roof, everything else was documented for me. It was all in writing. It was the correspondence from the insured with that note and asking to please commit everything to writing and otherwise release all undisputed funds for a full replacement. All of that was done so well, and I have to compliment you in your conduct on it. I know it was your first commercial case, but you certainly didn't. It wasn't for lack of experience that you did an amazing job with how you handled that. And I think it's important because it enabled Daly and Black, it would have enabled any attorney to look like a hero on the file, because all the groundwork had been done.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything I had to establish, because from an attorney's perspective, the job is to convince the opposing counsel that what you're saying is true, or that it's at least true enough that it creates a liability for their client.
Yeah.
And the insurance company in this case was sitting in a hot seat of liability after what you had done. And very simply, actually, I don't think you actually worked that hard at it. There wasn't 3 adjustments that you went up and chased around, and it doesn't sound like you even had really any contact with the carrier at all.
I never had any contact with the carrier whatsoever. And that's what the client really wanted to try to handle it themselves. And I was all for that, because I would rather them send my estimate straight to their carrier saying, hey, this is my contractor I chose. You know, we're not going with anybody different.
So other than sending in your estimate, which was their request, other than sending that in, you didn't have any communication with the carrier at all?
None. Never even spoke on the phone with the guy.
So what happened, and how did we do? I mean, in your opinion, if you had to tell us a little bit about the result on the case.
I think right when you guys got involved, that's when they were trying to pay for repair and 2 separate claims whatsoever.
By the way, I sent the demand letter out the day we got it.
Yeah, you sent that demand letter out, and what was it, like a week later they're calling and, okay, well.
We sent a demand letter. We sent a 541 notice letter letting them know they had 60 days or else to assess their risk and liability, perform a second inspection, make a different decision, pay the full value of your estimate, or else be sued.
It was within 10 days they called and said, hey, we're going to replace the whole roof. And then from there on, it was about pricing, I believe, right?
So I think it was 10 days before they agreed to the replacement. Yes. And then after that, they wanted to send somebody out because they weren't just going to accept your number as true. Yeah. They wanted to send someone out, inform them that you need to go out there and write a replacement estimate. And we went from that number. But
those guys were trying to get the job. I
do remember
the
that.
other roofing company.
That's right. Well, I mean, how nice is it to get called out on a full replacement approved that some other roofer has already gone laid.
They didn't know we were going to show up. They were up there with the client, a representative from the building, and we came walking up the roof hatch, and they looked like they were shocked because they were up there pitching them on the roof and how they should build it and stuff. And I was like, oh no.
I think I know why, and I think we can say this at this point, but I don't think you had that. Under contract, did you? That was possible that another roofer could have come and done the full roof replacement after you had done all of that.
Yeah.
Why do you think they stuck with you?
Well, I mean, that's when they called me and they said, hey, we really like what London's doing. We've liked what you've done. Go ahead and send us the contract over for that estimate that you gave us. And this was before it was settled, because remember, the carrier was trying to get that other contractor to do it for cheaper. So we sent a contract to them and they signed it.
Oh, of course. After they agreed to the full replacement, then they started to haggle on price. But the fact is that their attempt to argue price was totally ineffectual. It fell on deaf ears for us because we had such a good case. I don't need to argue price. Even if I agreed to their liability, the potential was there to go forward and have a court determine or at least decide whether or not that was reasonable to go through all of that for 5 months. After on day one, they said that they would approve a replacement, and then take you down the line that far to have to get an attorney and everything involved. And of course, in Texas, our attorney's fees are compensable, and so I had a really good argument for not only attorney's fees but statutory damages, the violation of the Prompt Pay Act, and the 541 notice letter is to tell them to assess their risk, and it took it out of the adjuster's hands, who was obviously trying to thwart the claim, it would appear. Right? I mean, I could only presume that much because it didn't make sense when you made so much sense on your end. And it takes it to the opposing counsel to decide not what the adjustment should be, but what is their liability.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you did was your job. You stayed in your lane as the contractor.
I was just a roofing expert.
In fact, you made no contact with the carrier whatsoever other than just submitting the estimate, which was what they asked you to do. But you created a scenario where the liability for them was so great when they attempted to act unreasonably. They attempted to take that claim and go the other direction with it, that you had laid the groundwork that prevented their attempt after the fact. Yeah. And in addition to that, I think that the fact that you communicated that to your client, or at least what you were doing, why you were doing it, and had them actually push that claim and provide the information to the carrier on their own, you created the trust, and that's why they stuck with you. So I think this claim is just such a great example, because at every point in time you did the right thing, but somebody was trying to take it from you, And at the end of the day, I think if you didn't have the trust with the client, you could have lost the deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you didn't have it under contract, and they had approved a full replacement at that point, which should have been done originally. But I think they didn't sign up with you because, I mean, you didn't know what it was going to be. What were they retaining you to do at that point?
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And, the client's got to feel comfortable before they just go signing a contract without knowing if their insurance company is going to pay for it or not,
Right.
And, at first when I explained to them, like, these are some of the things that can happen, they were kind of like, oh, I'd probably not. They've been good to us, da-da-da-da-da. Well, once it started happening, that's when they were like, this guy's told us this from the very beginning.
Well, I think it's interesting because they had accepted the carrier's decision without question on 2 previous occasions.
Yeah.
This is the first time they ever challenged it.
Imagine how often that happens. How many commercial property owners out there that they just believe what their insurance company says.
We've talked about that, and I think it happens a lot, but it's going to happen a lot less to the extent that there are good contractors like you out there that are not they're giving their experience with what has occurred. Obviously, my experience, I only get the call when the case is somebody thinks the claim is being unreasonably denied. But you gave them your experience. In my experience, this could occur, it might occur, and you enabled them to protect themselves in the best way possible, which increased the value of the claim. For me, when they tried to talk price, like I said, the argument was ineffectual. I didn't give it any credence whatsoever because their liability was so great on what they had agreed upon, and contrary to what they previously decided, that they had issues of liability, and we were able to settle that case. I think in 2 weeks.
I think it was like
10 days. I got
14 days.
14 days.
14, yeah.
10 days to get them to agree to the replacement. 4 days to haggle out on the price for you.
I think the total time it took since you got involved was 18 days. I think that was, I believe, that was 18 days. It's either 14 or 18.
And I think typically, and we won't. The average settlement in our firm takes about 8 to 10 months.
Yeah.
But it could take a lot less time if good contractors like you were out there putting in the groundwork on a case to create the potential liability should the carrier do the wrong thing.
Yeah. The client was extremely satisfied with you guys and the whole process.
Well, we did our job. And I think, it was easy for me or for Daly and Black to come through and make the arguments when they were just right there. And it was so easy to determine in the records and the correspondence that you had created, even though you didn't do a lot. But what you did do was so powerful that it enabled us to settle the case in 18 days.
Yeah.
A large commercial project in 18 days.
We pretty much just sat back and let the carrier kind of take it in there. They had the ball in their court and they dropped it, Hey.
You gave them every opportunity to do the right thing.
Yep.
You maintained the moral high ground, and your conduct, both your conduct individually and the insured's conduct, was above reproach. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important because we all presume the carrier is going to do the right thing, but in response to them potentially doing the wrong thing, we need to do everything right from the very beginning. Even when they tell us they're going to do the right thing, and a contractor might think, I know I submit the letter from the insured every time, or at least give them the option to do that. But they told me they were going to replace this. We don't need to do it this time. Yeah. And so I think to have a process very similar to what you used here in this case is very important.
That's why I've let them know how important it was that they need to have everything in writing after hearing that, because I knew that red flag of when he pulled them to the side and said, submit a replacement cost estimate. And then we'll pay for it. I knew, well, now he's over here pulling, representatives from the company's side and telling them that, but will they actually do that and put it in writing?
Right.
And that's what I told the client, and that's when they sent our estimate in.
So how long did it take you after we, it took us 18 days to settle the case, multi-million-dollar commercial project.
I think funds were, we settled it in middle of May? We started June 8th. So
I think we got the call in mid-April. It was, and sent the notice letter out that next day. Yeah. So, and
it was beginning of May that the case got settled.
Right.
Finally came to
once they agree. It takes some time to process the payments and everything. But And we got you added as a payee on that settlement check, right?
I think it went straight to the client.
Went straight to the client.
Okay. But we had already signed a contract before the case was even closed.
That's right. Okay. So
she was so confident in us by that point, especially after you guys were
Friday.
involved.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was just like, "Go ahead, send the contract over for whenever it gets settled. We trust you." I was just like,
and when did that occur?
I was about middle of May or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they hadn't issued a check or payment.
I think it was getting processed.
That's I remember. Yes. Okay. I remember that. So we knew at that point the roof was going to be approved for a full replacement, but we just didn't know how much at that point. So that's when she contacted you and said, "Send over your contract."
Yeah, because I think y'all had
That's
spoke
amazing.
like you were like, "Man, is Trevor the one you want to use?" And they were like, "Absolutely." And I think you had mentioned we'll get it.
It was never a question that Trevor would be the one they would want to use, because if it wasn't for Trevor or you and Roof Experts LLC, they would have been in the same scenario. I mean, they're sitting there with an eggshell roof, 2 previous repairs, and you just can't put lipstick on a pig. You can't add another repair when it's clearly the previous repairs didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, you walked upon that roof. They didn't even know they had a claim at that time.
Yeah.
And you pointed out that the roof was failing, and you directed them to a date of loss that could have occurred. I think it was pretty well known. It wasn't difficult to determine that date of loss, but at least advise them that you incurred damage on this date. Mm-hmm. I know it's windstorm, right? Windstorm damage on flat roofing is very difficult to determine. But when you sent me that video, and I saw it was the EPDM roof.
Yeah, it was waving in the wind.
Yeah, flapping in the wind like a sail.
Light breeze too.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just going like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that.
And they saw it too. I think at that point they realized the situation they were in, but they didn't know what they were up against.
Yeah.
And I want to commend you and please ask that others do as you did on that case, and that you go forward and teach your sales guys, other roofing company owners, sort of this idea of being completely hands off with the insurance company, but being very powerful with the correspondence that is sent by the insured, and maintaining the moral high ground and taking things in a step-by-step process, communicating with your client. I think that's really important, to communicate with your client what is happening. I'm sending in this estimate for a full replacement, but 9 times out of 10, what does a contractor do? They want to get them to open up the claim.
Yep.
The carrier extends liability for a minor repair, and then they're the ones that are fighting for a full replacement. And the insured is oftentimes left in the dark in that. But that leaves you a chink in the contractor's armor, if you will, in my opinion, because we've seen it time and time again. It's probably happened to you, where the carrier calls the insured, who knows nothing about the correspondence and everything you were bantering back and forth with the adjuster on, and says, "Did you know your contractor submitted an estimate for $1.2 million? We've only approved a minor repair for $150,000 on this, and you've got a $75,000 deductible. So you could be out of pocket if this contractor continues to do this."
Yeah, in that case, our job should be to identify, document, and write an estimate for the repairs or the damages on the property.
Right.
So if you do all those things and you got all the photos and everything's documented real well, and you take it to your client and you educate them like, "Hey, we don't need to do repair here. We need to replace this whole thing, and here's why. Here's the code requirements here locally," and then you convince them that they need a new roof. So, and then you let them turn that into their.
I don't think
carrier.
you even had to convince them on this one.
Well, yeah, not this.
I think
not
it was
this case.
fairly obvious.
It's not really convincing.
I like that. I like what you said. You said identify, document, and estimate.
Yeah, that's what
and
every
none of
contractor
that,
should focus
there's
on.
in no way, shape, or form that could be construed as adjusting.
Yeah, I just see a lot of contractors, they focus on that. I mean, honestly, policy and what an insurance company owes for and stuff. But if you could just be an expert as a contractor and document and knowing like the local building codes, really you can almost get any roof approved if it's got damage. If you know your codes and you take good documentation and you write a legitimate and reasonable estimate. And then that's when it is up to the carrier to be in good faith and approve it,
Right.
And if you educate your property owner on why it needs to be replaced with, local building codes and all this, and why we shouldn't put a Band-Aid or do a patch job when, you just got hit by a hailstorm and all the buildings around you are going to get new roofs, but they want to patch yours. That's when they get They're like, you know what? Give that to me. I'm going to go give it to my adjuster, and I'm going to talk to him. Tell him, email it to him, and put it in writing.
So you advise a client that State Farm is not their good neighbor. They're not in good hands with Allstate.
Right, exactly.
And Nationwide is
It's
not
on
their
your side.
But they are saying something about experts in Dallas. What are they saying?
Experts?
Yeah, I heard they're saying something about experts.
Oh,
As you
yeah.
I think what's important is that you be an expert. I think there needs to be more experts.
Yeah, for sure.
More expert roofers out there, and that look at it in that lens.
Yeah.
And take claims on it, because what you've done is significant on that claim, and you've done more sense, and that process it seems to have been working for you. And I just want to highlight that because you're young, you're 25 years old. You're an entrepreneur, and your head is probably thinking about a million other things right now. But you're here, you're sharing your story, you're telling us how this happened, and enabling others to hear this story and try to model how they conduct themselves in their claim handling processes to make that more effective for them.
I just think a lot of contractors, they focus too much on insurance and what they owe for and stuff like that, when they could invest their time into being like a specialist in certain roofing systems and estimating. And
Right.
let
Keeping
guys
facts versus opinions, right?
Yeah, let guys like you fight the case. If you do everything you can possibly do as a contractor to present this estimate as, we can't do a repair, it's got to be replaced, and the customer believes in that, but their insurance company won't approve it, well, that's when they need someone like you. If their insurance company is not going to approve it, there's nothing we can do to try to get it bought. I mean, we've already done our part.
You did your part, and when you do your part, that enables us to come through. And like I said, we look like heroes on that case.
Yeah,
to settle a multi-million-dollar commercial case in 18 days is almost unheard of in our industry. Most lawyers take 18 months, but we did it in 18 days.
I know, that was pretty incredible.
I was very proud of the result.
Me too. I was like, this is crazy.
It was all because of you. It wasn't because we're the greatest lawyers. And I think we're good. That's why we're in business. But it was because of the expert on the roof and your work with the insured. And it's beautiful that you never even contacted or had any word of communication with the carrier whatsoever. And you got it done.
Playing the dumb card with these adjusters just gets you so much further than, and unless they ask you like, hey, about the roofing system.
You don't need to tell them how smart you are.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think you're playing the dumb card. I think you're just taking a backseat role, letting them do their job. It's not your burden to provide the basis why they should pay the claim and honor it. It's their burden. The carrier's burden is to tell you their reasonable basis why they won't.
Exactly.
I think it's the roofing contractor's burden to provide a claim, a covered peril, or at least a potentially covered peril, and the information that the carrier needs to decide that. But you took an extra step. In addition to doing that, you added the cherry on top, and I think it's very important that you had the insured come through and submit your estimate with a request for release of all undisputed funds.
For sure.
Which is important, because if it's a $1 million claim that you submitted and the carrier only sends $200,000, they've admitted to the dispute of the other 800. And when you buttress that with a request for their reasonable basis why they would deny it, and to please put it in writing, they have to do that. And if they don't, aren't they acting unreasonably, or couldn't a decent lawyer go and make the argument that they were? I think so. Yeah. And so it's very simple steps. It doesn't seem like a lot, and I think that's why people maybe overlook the importance of it. But I think you honed in on that. I know we've talked a lot about theory and claims handling process, and some would say maybe we got lucky, but I don't think it was luck whatsoever. And that's why I wanted you come here to showcase the story, because
for sure.
It was, if only other contractors could do it that way and handle themselves and create the rapport with the client, they would lose less jobs. Yeah. They would close more jobs at higher values that their clients need, because you're just exposing yourself. If you had been the contractor to go out there and do a repair, as they said they were only willing to pay for, you would have been in the same hot seat as the preferred contractor that they were pointing the fingers at to say.
They would have been calling me a year later. Hey, my roof's leaking again, or fold over.
No, they'd be calling you because they had another storm date, and the carrier's out there again, and they're pointing the finger at roof experts, saying roof experts performed a faulty repair. But that's not of course you didn't. You would warn any of your work that you do, But the problem there would be that roof experts performed a repair when they knew it should have been replaced.
At the end of the day, I train all my guys the same. Go document, take the photos, and estimate it. Provide that to the client. Now, the insurance company, a contractor is not going to change their mind unless it's based on the repair scope.
Right.
So that's why I document, estimate, and take all the photos and everything. Well, I can't, I can only go out there so much with the adjuster and be like, yo, this is damage. You need to pay for this. At the end of the day, he doesn't have to listen to me.
No, and there's no record that you said that either.
Exactly.
You can go out there and say, it's damage, it's this or it's that. And if he believes you and writes it up in the driveway or on the roof, then that's phenomenal. But if he doesn't issue that authority at that point in time, you don't know what he's going to do with that. And if he doesn't do what he said he's going to do, you got no proof of what you said or what he said.
He could show up and not say anything to me at all if he wanted to,
Well, yeah. I mean, the guys that show up with H equals 0, W equals 0 I've seen that as a bumper sticker recently. Did I tell you that? Yeah, I saw that driving. I was like, there's no way this is not an adjuster. And
no
this
way.
is not a mistake. Yes, it is a legit sticker. I don't know. I'm sure that there are some adjusters groups that pride themselves in their ability to deny claims, but really that would stop. And an adjuster that thinks that they just have it in their back pocket and they could deny any claim because they could do this, they could do that, they could create the impression that the roof's going to be replaced, and issue a repair, not do anything, and then send other experts out there, another engineer, to come up with a different decision and then a different decision. And this is a great example, again, as I say, because you got a very sophisticated commercial property owner, a corporate bureaucracy, a CFO, a CEO, a COO, property maintenance guys on deck, all the way down to the mailroom. You've got employees that were there. They saw things. This should have been simple, but it wasn't because they presumed the carrier was acting in good faith.
Yeah.
And
the carrier got away with it for 2 years with them.
They could have, they definitely did get away with it, and they could have gotten away with it on this one. But I'm just glad that they found an expert that knew what they were talking about, because he who knows you're not getting paid for what you do at this point. You're getting paid for what you know.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
That's what matters, I think. And if more roofing contractors like you know what they're doing and know how less is more, and you don't have to whatever attempts you're making to convince the carrier in your own words and from your own correspondence to approve or to do what is right, it's so much less effectual than if you've got the policyholder doing it. And it also builds rapport if they don't do what you've basically sat down and had the policyholder, you both agree that that's what you're going to do. So please keep sharing your story, keep going out there, keep trying to teach others how to do what you did there and replicate that. I'm here to tell people you didn't just get lucky on a multi-million-dollar commercial claim in 18 days or in 4 months, essentially, but that case could have taken years if somebody didn't do the right job.
Yeah.
So I commend you for your efforts.
If they could have repaired it, again, by their preferred contractor, and then they would have had leaks over the rest of their roof where, it's just old and deteriorating. When they could have got a whole new roof or their whole entire roof replaced on that claim date or that storm date.
I agree. You did the right thing.
It probably happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, not if you're on the roof.
Yeah, right.
And not more people that think like you are on those roofs. So.
Yeah, and that's why I try to tell all contractors all the time, if you're on a commercial property, no matter when you're on it, whether it's got damage or it doesn't, get up there and document it in its in the condition that it's in while you're on it. So if it's beginning of January, and you get on this roof and it's in perfect shape, and then March comes and there's a hailstorm, and you have all the photos from January when you're on it, and then the insurance company comes out there in March and says, hey, this is pre-existing damage or something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, wait a second.
You
have photos from January.
You've documented it. You've estimated it.
Yeah.
And that's not, there's no way, shape, or form that could be unauthorized practice of public adjusting.
Well, just documenting the roof.
If you IDE, there's no way you UPPA.
Right, exactly.
Right? I love that.
Right.
I love that. That's the wrap. You really, you've got a lot going on. You're 25 years old. You've got a lot of talent. I'm really interested to see what you're going to do over the next 10 years.
Hopefully,
and you've got 30 in you. That's the scary part.
Hopefully, some roofs that are like football fields. That's my plan.
Well, that's let's go land us some more whales.
Yeah.
But get them in the boat the right way.
Yeah, for sure.
without a lot of damage, or and give the ability, if they don't, or if they're difficult, for us, some fiduciary, public adjuster, attorney, Daly Black, somebody to come through and handle that. But if it's done right by you, makes our job that much easier.
And it's just being a contractor.
That's
just
right.
Being a roof expert.
That's right.
That's what it is.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming out today, Trevor.
Appreciate you,
Yeah,
man.
man. Keep rocking it with Roof Experts LLC.
For
and we'll
sure.
see you soon. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks.